by golly, you could make more money getting up every morning, being happy and passionate and excited about what you're doing. And at the end of the day, fulfilled because you touched people's lives and made a difference. And you put a good business model together and you made a lot of money out of it as well. Conscious Millionaire. That's what Conscious Millionaire is. I point out to people every day. People, we'll kind of be joking around. I go, I'd like to point out it's not conscious poverty, nor is it conscious socialism. It says, get up, you got to work your ass off to be blunt.
Absolutely.
You still have to do all those things,
Yeah.
but now you're doing it from a state in which you're happy about what you're doing because you know that you really are doing that passionate difference that's inside of you, and everybody has that inside of them.
This is the Inner Changemaker with Jay Wong, the podcast dedicated to purpose-driven entrepreneurs and multi-passionate individuals. Tune in each week as we bring you an inspiring person and message to help you activate and tap into your inner changemaker. Thanks for spending some time with us today, and let's get started. Hello, changemakers. How is everyone doing on the first days of November? I can't believe it is almost the end of 2015. At the end of this year, people are usually, are almost mentally check out. But I think you always got to raise the level of positivity. You got to raise the level of ambition as we approach the new year. And so if this is your first time hearing the show, welcome to the Inner Changemaker. This is a place dedicated to purpose-driven individuals and passionate creators. We are learning and cracking the code on how to change our world, and we're going to do that by helping others change their world. Today's podcast is brought to you by Onnit.com. This is the company owned by Joe Rogan and Aubrey Marcus. If you look in my kitchen, you're going to find some Alpha Brain, MCT coconut oil. Both are proof of, or at least tactics that I use for my own productivity, and also some chewable melatonin, rewire my clock for when I do some traveling. They also have protein powders, kettlebells, other fun stuff. You guys can go check it out and get 10% off your purchase and their products for a limited time. So simply go to www.theinnerchangemaker.com/Onnit. So that's the name of the show /Onnit, ONNIT. Now, today I am going to incorporate something new because I want to give a shout out to the people that have been reposting my work, mostly on Instagram. And so shout out to 4 different people. 1, We Live Limitless. Awesome. I am Holden.com, Memoirs of Ajasa, and Carrie Gary. Thank you guys for posting and reposting my pictures and videos. You guys are awesome. If you want to hear your Instagram handle shouted out on this show, simply repost a picture or video from my Instagram feed. Tag me so that I see it. My Instagram is my name twice. And so JayWong, JayWong. This week, we have a really awesome guest with us. We have the man who literally wrote the book entitled Conscious Millionaire, and we have JV Crum III. First of all, it was his birthday earlier this past weekend. So happy belated birthday, JV. He walks us through exactly what is a conscious millionaire. That was like my first question, and how we can all become one. Originally, I was going to make the title Conscious Millionaire, but he also gives us so many different frameworks, and he gives us a framework, I think, near the 3/4 mark of the episode, where how we can start monetizing our passions. And so I thought that was very neat. So please listen to that part and start charging money for your passion. In the episode, he shares stories, insights on how he was able to figure out his own purpose and become what he now calls himself as a conscious millionaire. We cover quite a bit of material in this episode, so please make sure to take some mental notes. Feel free, if you're listening to this in the car, to stop the episode, think about what he says, because there are a lot of goodies here. JV is also a fellow podcaster with 2 shows. I don't know, how the crap do you do 2 shows, JV? That's really amazing. One on business, one on health. He also runs a non-for-profit as well named Conscious World Foundation. And so here we go. Without any further ado, here is the episode with JV. Enjoy, guys. So, JV Crum III, thank you so much for taking the time for being on the show. How's everything going today?
Jay, it is a great day. And I'm just so honored to be on your show. And congratulations for all the success you're having.
Thank you. Thank you. It is, as you know, we're going to get into just your whole story in just a little bit, but being a fellow podcaster, I think you have a couple podcasts yourself. What a great way to kind of get to meet all these wonderful millionaires, entrepreneurs, creators. Just been an absolute journey. Just looking at your background, JV, when we initially met, I saw you had such a diverse background, multiple degrees. I saw that you've been broke. You're a millionaire by 25. You're an accomplished author. The podcast is. You're a real estate expert. I mean, how do you introduce yourself when you go to dinner parties and events these days?
Hi, I'm JV. That's how I introduce myself. Or it's JV Crum III.
JV
I
Crum
don't,
III,
I don't,
yeah.
I don't tend to introduce any of that initially.
Okay, you kind of just, I get them, I guess, ease into the conversation a little bit and see where
Right.
it kind of goes.
Yeah. See what we have in common. I'm more interested in the other person. I already know about me, and I want to. When I meet people, I want to know about them.
Oh, no, sometimes you read all these articles on, the best networking strategies or the best way to say, to get into conversations. And a lot of times it's really the basic, like, hi, my name is Jay Wong.
Right. Well,
How's
and if
everything
you've
going?
seen me at conferences, I do tend to ship boxes of my books, so I tend to have my books with me, and that's always a great way to begin a conversation, as well.
Sure, sure. Well, let's jump into that. I mean, your book, The Conscious Millionaire. My first thought reading this is, what exactly, in your own words, is a conscious millionaire?
Right. I think it's a great question. Let's kind of deconstruct. Well, why don't we start with millionaire?
Sure.
Because actually, different people have different meanings for that because it has different importance. I mean, if you think about it, the first podcast I have, Conscious Millionaire podcast, is in 160 countries. Well, obviously, there's countries where 50 cents an hour actually is fair trade, given the economics of that country and how much people tend to make and what things actually cost there. So for that person, making $1 million might be like 100 million here.
Right.
So really, millionaire to me means achieving financial freedom for yourself. And that number of dollars in dollar equivalents is going to be different for every person. So it can
Hmm.
mean being a true financial millionaire. However, for someone, depending on where they're from, it could mean something different. But I think it always means financial freedom. I think that's what it connotes. Then conscious, I have three definitions for conscious. And the first one is awareness. So awareness starts with kind of the nuts and bolts of how you do business, how you make money, how you understand your customer, produce the right product, how you market, how you sell, what's going on in the economic environment, what's true about your customer, what's true about anybody that you're talking with. So that's the awareness level. Then the visionary level, I like to use Steve Jobs, musicians, artists, great leaders. You say that's a visionary leader. They've got
Right.
ideas. When we think of visionary, it's an idea or a way of doing something or a product that it represents a change from where things are today. And you really get into that by connecting into a bigger state of consciousness. And there are lots of ways to do that. Meditation's one of them.
Hmm.
And then the third is social consciousness. Now, that has various meanings as well. For some people, that could mean a green company. For other people, it could mean, solving world problems like how are we all going to have water in 20 to 50 years,
Right.
that's drinkable. But social consciousness could also mean how you run your business so that all the stakeholders win together. It isn't just the owners or the board of directors, but it's the suppliers, it's the employees or independent contractors, it's everybody on the team, it's the community you live in is another stakeholder, whether that community is physical or whether that community is online. So that's another way of looking at conscious, is that it's socially conscious. So you're listening to this and you might go, well, wait a minute, that's a lot. Well, it is a lot, but here's what's great is that each person who's listening, you've got a particular way you're going to approach building your wealth consciously. For some people, it'll be tapping more into the awareness. For others, there's a big, strong visionary. For another person, it might resonate at the conscious, the socially conscious level, and then a particular way. So what Conscious Millionaire is a conscious path and a set of processes and a way of thinking and approaching business and finances that allows you to, with consciousness, create whatever level of wealth that you want to create.
Right, right. So I really do like, and this is part of the reason why I was so excited to have you on the show because I love how you kind of broke down, conscious in three different, areas, like the trifecta of consciousness. But, I on the show, we talk all the time about impact, right? About changing people's lives and changing the world. But sometimes that could be really, really daunting, right? To say like, oh, I'm going to go out and change the world. In fact, it probably is not, the smartest move to do that. But no matter what level of change you want to create in this world, all change stems from oneself. And so I really love how you have that awareness level in the beginning because I do believe that to be fundamental. Is this like when you talk about building a conscious like enterprise, is it any different than say a social enterprise? We've had a few social entrepreneurs in here where they talked about kind of building impact and having metrics around that from the
Well,
beginning
I
to
think that
measure that.
if the primary focus you have on how you want to build the business is around social
Mm,
consciousness, then I think that you're going to be looking at the metrics of how you created social change. You should always be looking at the metrics of how you're positively impacting others because everything in Conscious Millionaire is about melding, creating some level of a personal, that's usually personal to you, uh, the positive impact you want to make, and the financial success. So all of that should be able to be measured in terms of metrics. When you get into the social kind of social entrepreneurship, sometimes that ends up being a not for profit, being run very similar to a profitable business. And sometimes it's
sure.
a for profit. In Conscious Millionaire, when I began putting it all together, one of the ways that I got my ideas is I had a couple of really good friends who were running very successful not for profits,
Hmm.
nonprofits. And I went and I talked to him and I said, well, how are you running this nonprofit? One was running a hospital nonprofit. So that's fairly sizable.
Right.
And both of them said the same thing. We have a board of directors that's filled with bankers and with business, very successful business people, and we run it like a business.
Hmm.
And that's where I got some of my initial ideas for Conscious Millionaire. I said, well, I'm talking about building a business that has a bigger vision, a higher purpose than just the money. And at the same time, I want it to be a very profitable business. So I want to create a model that's favors achieving both of these. And so I
Right.
got a lot of my initial ideas out of the not-for-profit world that was very successful. And the real difference is because I also have a nonprofit, I have a global nonprofit, consciousworld.org. It's a 501c3. Right now, I believe we've had applicants. We have work with 18 to 25-year-olds that are doing projects to uplift humanity. And my 10-year goal is to be in 160 countries. So the difference is in that, then we're looking at doing some crowdfunding. We have a grant from Google for our marketing, is that the revenue pieces typically come from someone different than who receives the benefits. So in a not-for-profit, you might have contributors, you might go out and do campaigns, and people, contribute money in one form or another, and might even include them buying specific things like a mug, et cetera. And then the people that are the direct beneficiaries of the not-for-profit tend to be a group that either pay little amount of money, less than what it costs to produce it, or they don't pay anything. And then in the for profit, typically the person who pays the money is the person who gets the benefit. So many times in a well run not for profit and in a very visionary conscious business like Conscious Millionaire is discussing, their only difference is actually when you really get down to it, aside from one pays taxes and the other obviously doesn't, is that in a for profit, the money that's paid in, the revenue is paid by the person who gets the benefit. And in the not for profit, typically either all or most of the money that's paid in is by one group of people and the beneficiaries are another group. But I think in today's world, the whole melding of the conscious business movement has brought the two together. And then it's just a question of which form of doing business, let's say, serves your higher purposes for working with youth all over the world, that giving them scholarships and training to build projects that are going to make a difference in the world and be scalable. Obviously, that fits a not-for-profit version.
Right,
But
right.
working with entrepreneurs, which is what Conscious Millionaire does, that fits very well a for-profit.
No, I definitely agree with the, how the, at least the layout of the conscious millionaire, and how an entrepreneur one day, or in these days, you can essentially have that designed from the beginning, and you could have it all to the extent of having a business and aligning yourself with that purpose. So I'm really curious, actually, what exactly was your motivation behind this? Maybe could you tell us a time where, did, through the research, I saw that you were a millionaire by 25. Maybe tell us a time where it was kind of all about the money and you didn't align yourself with, that greater purpose.
Well, and what I started out with was all about the money, actually. And I find, in working with different groups of people, that the majority of my clients come out of the 30s and 40s groups,
Okay.
because when you're going through your 20s, we all go through different stages. And the first stage is that you want to get the car and you want to get the house and you want to get the nice clothes and you want to have the trip to Europe. And that's perfectly normal.
Mm,
I think that we're actually finding, from my perspective, the millennial group of people are the most conscious group we've ever had on this, probably on the planet, at least in recorded history, right?
sure. Yeah.
We had the 60s, and we went through the 60s, which really created the beginnings of all of this. But
Hmm.
I would say that the millennials today are the most conscious. They're concerned about the planet, about water, about earth, about conscious living, about eating healthy. All of those are conscious pieces. And yet we're still all human beings in our development. So what I went through was I grew up in a really small little town, maybe 2 or 300 people in the center part of Florida. Everybody was struggling financially. Now, my father was a
Hmm.
farmer, and my mother was a school teacher. Nobody really had money, right? There was
Right.
no such thing as anybody in town having money. Everybody was just at some kind of how do we make it kind of
Hmm.
stage, right? And that's what I grew up in. And by the time I was 5, I had actually gotten fed up with it, because when I went to the grocery store, I grew up in a very strict family and I was taught to be well behaved. And well behaved meant that I had already learned at 5 not to ask for the candy bar because there wasn't any extra money for it. And I would just hope mom had some candy on the list of what was going to be coming home, but I didn't ask for the candy bar. And so, in many ways, now that I've thought through it so many times, probably I became a millionaire because I wanted a candy bar when I
Yeah.
was 5, right? Because I sat around and, when we were little kids, we have this great imagination. We can be kings and queens and transformers and superheroes and,
Absolutely. Yeah.
have a supersonic craft that is, our blanket, and we tend to be happy with that, but we're certain that we're going at, warp speed to, a whole nother galaxy in 3 seconds. Uh, and so, in that kind of mindset of a little kid who
Yeah.
believed anything was possible, one day I was musing to myself and I said, well, what's the solution to this? And I was very serious, I was very seriously thinking about this. And I went, I know. When I grow up, I'm going to be a millionaire. And first, I just had to run inside the house and tell my mom and dad, because I had discovered there were oceans on the earth, right? And they had
Right.
water in them. And this is how we're all going to eventually be able to drink or something. And my mom said, don't tell anybody. Well, of course, being a very good little kid who wasn't obedient all the time, I went around and I told everybody, because that's what it's true, right? And I'm sure the little old ladies in town who I was friends with, but who
Yeah.
were widows, I'm sure they all winked at each other and they said, "Oh, isn't he cute? He's going to be a millionaire when he grows up." But none of that bothered me. However, when I went to write my book, my editor said, "Well, you've got to tell your story." So I'll just continue the story here. When I was 5, the real reason my mom said that, And it's a very critical piece of the story because you may be listening today and going, but wait a minute, I'm in my 20s and I don't have my million. And I'm in my maybe my 30s and I don't have my million, right?
Yeah.
And well, because some of these beliefs might be pulling around in your mind as well. We lived across the street from the church.
Mm.
And now I understand, thinking back my conversations with my parents and the kinds of things they would say, right? Is that they thought to have that much money, you had to have been a criminal or scammed somebody or be doing dishonest business because good, honest, upright people didn't have that kind of money because nobody we knew did, but we knew a lot of good people, right? All the
Right,
good people
right.
were like farming and teaching school and they didn't have any money.
So that association was kind of
Yes,
built into your mindset.
that was built in. I don't think they thought through it that way, but I think that's what was there. And fortunately, as a little kid, I had associated, from the very moment I discovered this whole idea, I'm going to be a millionaire. It's like, oh, I'm going to get the nice home and I'm going to get a nicer car and I'm going to be able to buy the candy bar, and my life's going to be wonderful. What happened was I did get the 4-story home on the water and the Mercedes and the trips to Europe, and I was 25, and that was, amazing, right?
Right.
But the third month, I remember it very well. I was standing in my living room looking out the bay. It was a sunshiny day. There were palm trees in front of my lawn and there were, sailboats and, just nice little ripples in the water. But I felt miserable and unhappy. And I was acknowledging to myself that something was severely wrong with this picture. That here I had money in the bank and a beautiful, luxury home and the Mercedes and all these things that, I thought as a little kid, oh, wow, you're going to grow up and you're going to get all this different life. And I did. But I remember saying, I don't even like myself and I'm horrible at relationships, which was true. My personal life was just absolutely a mess.
Mm.
So I had accomplished, something financially that most people spend their whole life and don't accomplish. But what I hadn't accomplished was any of the inner work. And I, not one to let grass grow, so to say, I immediately set out to figure out, well, what was this? Now, you might think it took a long time. I spent about 15 years and I went to literally sweat lodges and spiritual retreats and Tony Robbins and Wayne Dyer and every personal growth book that I could find, Dennis
Mm.
Waitley, all of those books. And I read them and I was going to workshops and I was looking for really some meaning, some purpose in what I was doing. And I finally realized that what was missing was I didn't really have a strong purpose that I was connected to. And I sold the companies and went off on a more extended journey, lived at a Buddhist monastery to meditate, went to Esalen, that's a human potential place, and did work studies on the Big Sur coast. And then I moved to Boulder, shaved my head, meditated, went camping for 2 or 3 weeks at a time. I did the whole journey. And it was
Right.
really good for me because I knew I was searching for my purpose. And one day I was in a hot tub. I was over skiing in Lake Tahoe for the winter. And I'd gone to San Francisco, which is only about a 3.5 hour drive for the weekend, and picked up this brochure for the Green Festival. And I was in a hot tub, looked down, saw the word conscious, and immediately formulated in my mind this phrase, conscious millionaire. And I got a tingling in my spine and a very, just a peaceful feeling all over my body. And I said, oh my gosh, this is it. This
Right.
is this is my purpose. And I called it kind of like it was my calling. It was my assignment. Being a good attorney, I filed my trademarks. Now they're all over the place. And then about 6 months later, in a kind of a similar revelatory type moment, I got the phrase conscious world, filed my trademarks, wasn't sure what I was going to do with it. And that's now my global nonprofit. And so those are the two vehicles that I'm utilizing to live my purpose out. And so what's made me so passionate, I think, about Conscious Millionaire is that I made my first money doing something that wasn't meaningful or purposeful and found that I actually had nice things. And it was a lot better to have a beautiful home than not have one. But it would have been a lot better had I had purpose and meaning like I have now back then. And so, I think a lot of us who are on just, big visions for what we can do with our life, I think a lot of us, are are motivated by something that was missing at some point in our life. I want to save people that step. I want to go, wait a minute. Not only can you build all the financial wealth you want by doing something that's meaningful, that has a higher purpose to you, that actually transforms and does something valuable for your clients, but by golly, you could make more money getting up every morning, being happy and passionate and excited about what you're doing. And at the end of the day, fulfilled because you touched people's lives and made a difference. And you put a good business model together and you made a lot of money out of it as well. Conscious millionaire. That's what conscious millionaire is. I point out to people every day. People, will kind of be joking around. I go, I'd like to point out it's not conscious poverty, nor is it conscious socialism. It says, get up, you got to work your ass off, to be
Yeah,
blunt. You still
absolutely.
have to do all those things, but
Yeah.
now you're doing it from a state in which you're happy about what you're doing because you know that you really are doing that passionate difference that's inside of you, and everybody has that inside of them. Everybody.
Hmm. JV, I absolutely love that story. I mean, you're a great storyteller. That's for the record. But on the show, I just wanted to share with you that I kind of started doing the show because I was under this belief that, everyone, people should want to be entrepreneurs. They want to take more control of their life. And with taking that elusive leap of faith into entrepreneurship, there's a lot of it's like the inner demons that we have to face, right? And so I did a lot of motivational talks on fear, on mindset, how to overcome fear, anxieties, all this fun stuff. But it's funny. The more I do the show and the more I interview bloggers, creatives, millionaires, entrepreneurs, the more I realize that it's actually not about it's not about labeling oneself an entrepreneur. And it's not about labeling oneself an employee or a manager. And if we could just forget about those labels for just a few seconds and we realize that it's about consciously choosing the lifestyle that we want. And more of the episodes have really been leaning towards that. And I guess it's really great to obviously have you here because it does tie in so much with that conscious millionaire mindset. Because what you're talking about is more or less along those terms of consciously doing the things that make you happy, but not necessarily foregoing the profit side of things, not just letting that slide. Because to be a millionaire or to be considered financially wealthy or at least sound for whoever, you do need to work your ass off. So that's a really, really great story. What would you say is the absolute best part now that you've kind of become this conscious millionaire?
I think the best part is that I have a clear direction for my life, and that the vehicle for how I'm making my difference is that I simultaneously see how I make my difference as a way to quote unquote build the empire at the same time, that the two are interfused. And as I put it, wild horses wouldn't stop me. So now it's solving problems that I think it was about 6 months ago that I said, okay, now I have my three, because I shortened three. So I have my three major goals. One is to build Conscious Millionaire, and there'll be a lot of building businesses that come out of that whole experience. Two is to build this Conscious World Foundation and be in 160 countries and make that my biggest legacy and help to create the next generation of conscious leaders around the world. And then the third is, what does JV want as a life? Well, that's very clear to me, a life of adventure. And a lot of that means travel, going outside my box. I decided to create a goal for my 80th birthday, which is quite a ways away, but and people go, well, is that the first time you're going to be there? And I go, no, I don't think so. But
What's
I
the
want to
goal?
spend my 80th birthday at Machu Picchu. But now I'm thinking we'll have a big mastermind there, so it'll probably be a big event.
A conscious millionaire retreat.
The Conscious Millionaire Retreat
There you go.
at Machu Picchu. That's kind of what I'm seeing. And then, the whole life of adventure. But then I said, well, what's my big number? Now, I knew when I said that, what I meant was, how many people am I really going to impact? What's going to be the big thing that I've done with my life? My big is you talk about metric. What's the big metric, right? And I spent a whole evening working on that and kind of going to new, up leveling and up leveling and up leveling. And what I finally came to was a billion people. Now, I get particularly, you're listening to this, I bet you have a biorhythm too. So my biorhythm gets more visionary the later it gets, right? I'm not talking like you start drinking or something. I'm saying just my biorhythm. At 1 or 2 in the morning, I have amazing visions of changing the world.
Right,
But what
right.
I've learned is that in the light of day, I need to take them out, put them on a whiteboard, kind of let the sun shine on them and go, okay, is this realistic? I'm a big dreamer, but you still have to come back and ask that question.
Yeah.
And so the next day, it took me less than an hour to prove to myself that I could do that logically. And the way I did it was I said, well, what was here today that wasn't here, say, 2 years ago in the internet? Because I realized immediately this was a question purely about leverage. It was a leverage question as to how you get to a billion people. So I said, well, what's here that wasn't here before? And you start looking the changes in Facebook. I mean, now all of a sudden you have Periscope. Who knows where that's going? But I mean, it's just right. But you have all
Yeah.
these things that weren't here 2 years ago. So I said, well, what's going to be available to me to leverage? Because I think for the next couple of decades, the internet is probably our leverage machine, right?
Yeah, no,
Yep. And it's just
absolutely.
what are the different ways we're going to be able to leverage is now the question. We know the mechanism. Now let's find out the different ways. And I said, well, the reality is I don't know, nor does anybody else, because the idea hasn't even come into the person's head who's going to create it. And I said, well, then what kind of leveraging mechanisms are there going to be available on the internet in 5 years? Well, of course, same answer. 10 years. That's when I stopped because I realized that, I could imagine that 2 years from now, you don't even have an audience and you put some message out and you push a button and 4 million new people see it who are people who would like that message because there's some mechanism and it goes through and it looks at the hashtags and looks at everything and maybe you don't even have to hashtag it. Maybe it's intelligent enough just to get the meanings out of it, right?
Well, JV, I was really quick. Just I was watching this thing by it was like some conference thrown on by Vanity Fair, I believe, and Mark Zuckerberg and someone from the Oculus team was talking about virtual reality, and they were saying that virtual reality is not even that far away, and they're actually rolling out virtual reality in the spring 2016. And that's like only half a year away, right? Where we're going to have they make a case for why virtual reality will be, a platform for the future, for example. But you're absolutely right. Who knows how the world's going to evolve and
But what
how
we
these
do
things
know is
will.
that mechanisms for creating massive leverage are going to only expand, and they're not expanding incrementally, in the same way they're expanding logarithmically,
Right.
right? So 1 unit of time is 10, and the next equal unit of time is 100. So we're really moving in that direction, and then it was easy to see that if my focus and my ultimate metric for my life is I want to positively impact, then it was, well, how do you operationally define that? Now you're not going to necessarily be able to measure that you hit a billion because there are going to be people. My podcast had a couple of million downloads its first year. That's not a couple of million unique people because there are people who are subscribed, they're listening to every one of them, but that's a large number of people had to have at least heard part of a podcast.
Yeah.
So I said, well, operationally, I will define positive impact as anything that positively impacted them today or planted a seed, because I'm huge on seed building for tomorrow. And they could hear a minute or less of one of my
Mm.
podcasts or some show that I'm on or radio or a TV or read a couple of sentences that are, blipped out there off of my book. And if that in any way positively moved them forward in their life, planted a seed that started growing, I positively impacted them. So then, you know, that gave me an understanding that even just a small part of a conversation can positively impact somebody. So then it's
Absolutely.
about leveraging to a billion plus because they're going to be deaf ears. So, maybe it takes 2 billion people that you connected with in some way to positively impact a billion. But it gave me a real direction for how I started making decisions, especially moving me more towards one to many as opposed to one as the way that I was going to start building things in my business and how I was going to focus my own activities.
Yeah, you just reminded me of Dory Clark. Um,
Well, that's interesting because Dory Clark and I just a couple of days ago were together at a training of Michael Port, and I took a picture. I haven't put it yet out on Facebook where
oh
she
no
gave her
way.
book and I gave her my book,
Oh
and
wow.
she's been on my show. So tell me how it reminded you of Dory Clark because
Well,
I happen to
she
really
I
like her. She's a really great person.
yeah, I was listening to her when she was promoting her book. Is it Stand Out? I
Yep.
want to say.
So
Okay,
it's now standing out on my
standing.
nightstand.
Yeah. Yeah, I just remember I was so I work I'm in a paid mastermind and anyways she was doing like a kind of like a live webinar for us and I was just on there listening to her talk about the you were just saying one to many versus the one to one model and how to kind of stand out with your message and what have you but yeah, no, I think she's absolutely great, and I definitely believe it's. You also reminded me of I think it was Peter Diamandis who said like the new definition of a billionaire shouldn't be just someone who has $1 billion. It should be someone that is impacting 1 billion people. Because it's about that ripple effect, that impact that you really want. And who knows what metric, down the road will be the one to kind of measure that, right?
Well, yeah, absolutely.
I just wanted to go back a little bit actually because I'm really curious. I imagine a lot of people listening to this they might maybe think of going on kind of a transitional journey, kind of like the one you were describing where you're doing it for learning reasons, you're going to travel, you're going to find yourself, you're going to however you decide to label it. How difficult was that time period for you?
Are you saying about creating the idea of conscious millionaire, or could you kind of ask that just
Yeah,
a little bit differently?
just like your whole journey in discovering the conscious millionaire. Like you mentioned that you went to a bunch of seminars, you constantly started reading all these books, and so that
Well,
process of
actually,
like
parts of the process were really difficult for me because I was reading books on how to. I knew that the clue was finding your purpose, but I was reading books on how to discover my purpose and reading sentences that were kind of like this: "When you find your purpose, you'll know it." To which I would say, well, that's completely unuseful because I kind of figured I'd know it. But how do I
right.
discover it? And in my case, it was rather prolonged and convoluted, I think. And what's interesting is that I have something I call true north, which is the passionate difference that you have strengths to bring out in the world. And I can help basically anybody discover that at a deep enough level that now we can begin to work with it in their business and their life, usually in 3 sessions. But what's happened is, like anything, especially something that has deeper pieces to it, is that the person who discovers it for themselves can go through quite a journey. But then I deconstruct things and I started looking at it and going, oh, well, this is really the secret behind this. And this is really the secret behind this. And so if we work on those things, then I know that I will either get somebody to their deeper passionate piece or I'll get them to the entire piece. And that really depends on where they are on their own journey. But if you think of the body, the heart piece is the passionate piece. And then you kind of journey down through the heart at deeper levels of your inner being. And that's where you get to the purpose piece, the difference you want to make.
Mm.
And so if we could only get to the passionate piece and that's what the person's ready for, then that's fine. Because what I've never found, so I feel pretty satisfied that if that's where we are, that that's where we should begin the work on the business. I've never found somebody whose passionate piece is not in sync with the deeper part of the purpose difference piece. They've always been in sync with each other. Someone just might not be ready to discover that yet. And sometimes that has a lot to do with where they are in their own life cycle and their own living piece. At 25, I didn't know mine, right? I'd figured out how to
Mm,
make the $1 million, but I didn't know mine. So, I always remember that, wait a minute, you at one point didn't know yours.
yeah.
And so it just depends on what somebody's ready for. But I can get them deep enough that we can take that and make
Mhm.
sure that the business and the life they're creating is in alignment with where they should be heading, what's going to be the highest and best usage of their life and the highest and best productivity for their life in terms of their personal satisfaction as well as the meaning and purpose that they're bringing to other people.
Love it. Love it. Love it. Without maybe giving it all away in terms of a framework, what would you say is the first, let's say the first two steps that a listener right now um, can take in terms of becoming, you know, on their own path of becoming a conscious millionaire, or at least building a business that incorporates their purpose and profitability?
Sure, absolutely. Why don't we work on the passion piece, because there are really three pieces to discovering it. And I'm huge on journaling.
Mm,
Um, so I suggest, and I personally favor journaling with a pen, and I use notebooks. I happen to like moleskin notebooks. I have different colored ones for different activities.
okay.
So, but if you like to journal and you like to do it on the computer, that's fine. There's just something that I have found is really useful about handwriting it. So, but whatever way works for you. And these are the three parts of the beginning to discover what is that passionate purpose that you have. So the first one is that you get lost in time. You think it's been a half hour and you look at the clock and wow, it's been 4 hours. And that can be fabulous and fun and wonderful, unless of course you have a spouse and you told them you're going to meet them in a half hour, in which case might not have been the best moment to have found that passion, right?
I know every entrepreneur has been in that situation at
Right.
least
But
once.
and that's a great first clue. All right. You're on to the right path of finding out that deeper passion if you just get totally lost in it. The second thing, and it's a very specific emotion, and you don't just feel it, say, emotionally, you feel it in your body. It's very much in your body, and that is the feeling of joy. It's not just happiness, it's not just excitement, it's joy. It's deep joy that just it kind of exudes from you. And a lot of times when I'm doing something that I'm totally passionate about, I'll see somebody and they'll go, "Oh my God, your face looks different." I go, "Really?" I go, "Wow, it's just radiant." And it's the joy. It's the joy
Mm,
that just comes out in so many different ways. And then the third part is that by definition, whatever you're passionate about is some kind of an activity. And you have probably done this activity to help other people for free because you get so much joy and so much excitement and passion from doing it that you get lost in the time, you feel joy, and you just naturally want to help other people doing this. So you've probably done it to help other people for free. Guess what? This is a big clue as to what I believe, however you're making your living, whether you have a livelihood of working in a corporation or you're an entrepreneur and you want to be doing it on your own, this is a big clue that this is what you're supposed to be doing to earn your livelihood in life. Why would you be spending your time, which 87% of Americans are unhappy, dissatisfied with how they're making their money?
hmm
So, doesn't it just make sense that if you were passionate about how you were making your money every day, then not only would you get up in a different state, a more positive state of mind, but that you would probably make more money doing something you were passionate about, given that you set it up in a good business to begin with, than doing something that you just absolutely were dissatisfied with, but you still have a good business model. How motivated are you going to be in that first level? So, whatever you're making today, if you're doing it in a way that's dissatisfying to you, just imagine that now we're talking about leverage. We're talking about warp speed. We're talking about putting your life on steroids, except it's all healthy for you because it's the joy, it's the passion that you're going to feel doing something that really it makes you vibrantly alive. Doesn't it just make sense you would make more money choosing the second path?
JV, I think it's it's crystal clear. But I love it. So lost in time, you gotta have that joy radiating inside of you, and start charging pretty much.
Yeah, so right. The thing is, you've done it for free.
Yeah.
Now, all you got to do is turn around and start charging for it.
Love this. Love this. On the point of joy, really quick, I was just at a Brendan Burchard event actually in Santa Clara,
Okay.
and he has this great quote. And I'm gonna paraphrase here. It says, he says, either two things happen to you, two things happen in your life. Either something new happens to it, and sometimes we call that luck, fate, divinity, what have you, or something new comes from you. And that's what he talks about joy and how we can choose to be joyful in every moment of life. We could, in theory, bring the joy, and that's how he kind of references it. Sorry, so just that's a little quick note there. So the free to paid thing, it made me just think about what you said earlier in the conversation when you said, the people had this belief about money is evil, or bad people make a lot of money. How do people get over that?
Well, I think one of the things they need to do is they need to connect with what they're doing has a positive result. And that for me is learning to make their decisions in a new way and then putting a positive energy around those decisions. So when I looked back and I was working on the book Conscious Millionaire, Grow Your Business by Making a Difference.
Yeah.
And I was looking back at how did I go in 3 years from being broke to this 4-story home and the trips to Europe and the Mercedes in the garage, right? So I realized BMW will never be a sponsor of mine because I talk about Mercedes too much, but that's okay. I talk about Mercedes. It's a joke, but it's really true.
Maybe they can
If
be a
you've
sponsor
driven,
though.
I've had Mercedes and I've had BMWs, and I think they're both excellent automobiles. But I don't think you can be in love with both of them.
Hmm.
You can only be in love with one of them.
Right.
And because they're completely engineered differently, they have a completely different experience. And you're going to be in love with one of those experiences probably. But you can't be, you can admire it, but you can't be in love with both of them. So anyway, that's my speech on Mercedes and BMWs.
Sponsored by
Free
Mercedes.
speech absolutely has nothing to do with what we're talking about. So there's a decision process, and you've got to understand that decision process. That's how I've made millions of dollars. It's what I teach clients. It's what I'd like to give to you today when you're listening. Is there's specific steps that you need to absolutely learn how to do, because in making every decision in your business and finances, these same steps, the same process will take you through to the best and absolute highest result that you can possibly get. And it'll get you there your most effective way, and in a way that you're going to learn and be able to then go and make those same kind of decisions a second time at an even higher level. And I call it the formula for creating wealth. And what I'd like to do is give you the ebook so that you not only get the whole formula, but you get diagrams, specific examples, questions so that you're led through using it in your business or finances, and a link to get a $97 program completely free, where you'll get 16 videos on how to apply the Conscious Millionaire concepts to building your business so that you learn how to make learn how to make your decisions the right way, the most effective way. That's going to give you the most effective and efficient outcomes. And when you start doing that and realizing that you can create all these positive results, and those positive results are impacting all the people that you're helping, all of a sudden, through action, you're going to start changing your mindset about what it means to create wealth, that it's actually a very good thing. It empowers you. It empowers you with being the custodian of this money to live your life better, to give back to others, to make your difference, to help all the people who you've helped as clients. Only good comes from it when you approach it this way.
Wow. Absolutely, and thank you for the gift. That's really nice. So I'll definitely link to it in the show notes. But it is, correct me if I'm wrong, it's consciousmillionaire.com/wealth formula.
Right. Yeah. Consciousmillionaire.com. Then your forward slash actually
Oh,
forward
yeah.
slash wealth formula. No hyphens, nothing. Just, spell it all out. Wealth formula. And I want to give that to you absolutely free because wherever you are on your journey, whether you haven't started your business or you have, and you really want to get to the six figure level, or you've gotten there and now you want to get to seven figures or even double a seven figures, it's the exact same process that will get you there and help you focus in a laser way on getting one specific result that's going to get you to your highest level.
JV, that is awesome. Last question for you. What comes to mind when you hear the word change maker?
Well, I immediately think positive things with change because I happen to love change. So,
Yeah.
what I think of as change maker are the visionary people on earth who are really going to be responsible for the next world that we're creating for ourselves as a society. That's what I think of with change makers.
That is great. I know we are running a little short on time, so where can people follow you on your journey? And thank you, obviously, for that amazing gift. I hope everyone listening gets a chance to take a look at that. But is there anywhere else people?
Sure. So, first get the formula for creating wealth. Also, come to consciousmillionaire.com and click on the podcast. I have two podcasts. One's 5 days a week, Conscious Millionaire podcast. It's about business coaching for conscious entrepreneurs. Wherever you are on your journey, we have incredible guests and give out a great information. And then 3 days a week, there's another podcast, the health podcast, Conscious Millionaire Health Reality Show. And that's Monday, Wednesday, Fridays. Again, we have great guests. It's a shorter show, and it's really aimed at health and fitness for busy entrepreneurs because as entrepreneurs and leaders, one of the first things we throw out when we want to get 2 or 3 more hours of work, which happens all too often,
Yeah.
is oh, well, nope, don't have time to go to the gym today, right? Well, no, I'm just going to go to the fast food place and pick up something so I can work another 2 or 3 hours. And what I've discovered from my own journey and gaining over 100 pounds when I went back to help my dad, had Parkinson's, ultimately had a stroke. In a very short period of time, I gained that weight, most of it
Wow.
in 7 months. And I realized, wait a minute, this isn't just me who went through this rather large, experience of all my emotional buttons getting pushed, but all entrepreneurs, every one of them, even if you are at the ideal weight, does not mean you're healthy or fit. It just means you're at the ideal weight. And we have a big uh, myth in this country that if you have the right waist size, that you're healthy and fit, but you could be extremely unhealthy inside because you're not putting any healthy foods in you, and you could not be fit at all, not in any real fitness sense of the word. And so I realized there was a big, huge need. And I think it's why the show's done, it was just in, 3 months and it's doing incredibly well because it's about health and fitness for busy entrepreneurs. And we all have to find over and over again. It's not like you get to balance or you get to the conscious space of living. We have to reinvent that every day for ourselves because every day we've got new challenges. So I now realize not even making money needs to be at the center. What needs to be at the center of your life is your health and fitness, because having experienced getting out of whack, so to say, and then getting diseases and almost dying and having gone through a whole lot of experiences through this, it's helped me realize what's really most important. And that if I want to be around and if you want to be around, so that you can really, now that you tap into that true north and you get that bigger vision for your life, you want to be here to do something with it. And the best way to give yourself an insurance policy isn't the health insurance policy you pay for. It's the insurance policy of how you treat yourself on a daily basis in terms of your health and fitness.
Yeah, well, JV, I'd love to, maybe we're gonna have to have you on the show again because I feel like that whole health and fitness piece for the people that don't, quote unquote, don't have enough time. I think that is an amazing, very relatable topic for a lot of the millennials, a lot of the entrepreneurs that are out there. So thank you once again for your time and your knowledge. I learned a lot. I was taking notes while we're doing this. So yeah, I'm sure we will get a chance to talk again very soon.
Thank you very much, Jay, for having me on the show. It's my honor. And, I want to just give my hand off to everybody who's listening. This is a great show. Keep listening and, choose your path, the one that's going to be passionate for you, the one that's going to make the difference you want to make, and then get fully committed to it. That's my challenge for you because you're here and you're listening to this for a reason. And I think it's because you're one of the change makers on this earth who are ready to help usher in a better way of life for all of us.
Love it, JV. Love it. All right, man. Well, we will talk to you next time.
Thank you so much, Jay.
That is it for this week's interview. Did you like what you heard? If so, please subscribe, rate, and review the podcast. We're building a community together for change makers under the belief that together we can change the world. Join the movement at www.theinnerchangemaker.com. You can also go there for show notes and additional resources not provided in the podcast. Until next time, live with passion, live your dream, and live it now.